How candy canes are made. Ever wonder how those elite red and white candy canes come to life? They're more than just holiday treats. They blend sweet science and skillful crafting. The process is as fascinating as the delicious candy, from the bubbling sugar to the perfect twist. So in the spirit of the season, let's unwrap the secret behind how candy canes are made. Candy canes are sweet little holiday icons that are both delicious and decorative. I'm sure you know how it goes. Peppermint flavored, red and white striped, shaped like a tiny walking cane for elves or shepherds. But have you ever stopped to think about how these festive candies are made? It's a process that involves cooking up a batch of molten sugar, shaping it into sticks, then bending it into that signature hook, like a sugary boomerang of happiness. And do you know an interesting fact? Candy canes have been around since the 17th century, proving once again that humans have always obsessed with sugar. Fast forward to today, and these little guys are holding their own in a $1.4 billion Christmas candy market. Billions with a B. Candy canes are made and scarfed down every year. Back then, candy canes were simple, 6 inches tall, as thick as your pinky, and flavored with peppermint or wintergreen. But now, the times have changed. Modern candy makers decided to throw tradition out the window and go absolutely bonkers. Now, you can find candy canes ranging from 2 inches, barely a snack, to massive 12-inch beasts that look like they belong in a strongman competition. And you won't even believe how thick they are. We're talking about everything from pencil thin to candy clubs that could double as weapons in a sugar war. As for the flavors, we have apple, cinnamon, watermelon, strawberry, and even chocolate in the mix. Yes, chocolate candy canes exist, because why wouldn't they? The colors have gone wild too. A green apple candy cane, you better believe it's green with red stripes, because candy cane makers don't do subtle things. But that's not even the crazy part. Some manufacturers have said, you know what? Forget the whole cane thing. Now you've got candy cane inspired products in various shapes and sizes. So if you think candy canes are just for Christmas, think again. These sugar sticks are out here making a name for themselves all year. So how are these yummy delights made? Let's go into the details. Have you ever wondered how candy canes, the ultimate Christmas treat, come to life? No, it's not some magical process where elves make them up in Santa's workshop. Making these striped sweets is like a chemistry experiment, complete with perfectly balanced ingredients, a lot of heat, and just a sprinkle of holiday magic. And trust me, it's more interesting and complicated than you'd think. At the heart of it all is sugar. It's not your average, grab it from the pantry kind, but high quality, super refined sugar ready to shine. It's heated until it melts into a molten syrup, like lava, but much tastier. This syrup is then stretched, rolled, and twisted into shape before cooling into the hard, crunchy texture we all know. But sugar doesn't work alone. We have corn syrup, the MVP of candy making. Without it, the sugar would crystallize, turning your candy cane into a gritty, brittle mess. Plus, corn syrup gives the candy its signature glossy, opaque look. Let's face it, nobody wants a see-through candy cane, which would be weird. And for those who prefer their treats on the lighter side, some recipes even use artificial sweeteners like aspartame. Sure, you can go sugar-free, but isn't that like Santa swapping cookies for bitter leaves? Feels wrong. Behind the scenes, a few ingredients make the magic happen. Water is first to jump in, mixing with the sugar to create a syrupy base. But don't get too attached, it's mostly boiled off when the candy is done. Then there's the cream of tartar, which adds tiny air bubbles to the mix, making the candy lighter and more stable. It's like the personal trainer of the candy world, ensuring everything stays in tip-top shape. A pinch of salt also makes its way into the recipe, not for flavor, but to tweak the chemistry just enough to create the perfect texture. And there you have it, a candy cane base ready to shine. But what's a candy cane without its iconic red stripes and minty kick? The real fun begins with flavorings like peppermint and wintergreen oils. They're why your mouth feels cool and tingly after just one bite. Some candy makers like to mix things up with natural flavors like fruit, honey, maple syrup, and even a touch of citric acid for a twist. Then comes the color. Those bold and green stripes are brought to life by FDA-approved food dyes, ensuring your candy cane looks as festive as it tastes. Yes, the government regulates your holiday treats, so you don't have to worry about shady ingredients sneaking in. Moving on, workers, called compounders, another name for candy chefs, toss all the ingredients into massive stainless steel kettles with automatic mixers. It's like a giant KitchenAid, but way cooler. They crank up the heat to over 300 degrees Fahrenheit, or don't touch this with your bare hands degrees, until the mixture turns into a bubbly amber liquid that looks like molten gold. Then after, things get slightly messy. That boiling sugar lava is poured onto water-cooled tables to cool down enough so it doesn't burn through the table. Then, it's sent to these wild working machines with arms that stretch and pull the candy repeatedly. Imagine the candy doing a full pilot's workout. This stretching not only cools it down, but turns it into that shiny, silky white you recognize. It's not a candy cane yet, it's still flavorless. So at this stage, a worker steps in to sprinkle in the magic, the flavoring. Maybe peppermint, maybe something else if they're feeling adventurous. And while they're at it, they throw in the colors too. At this point, it looks less like candy and more like a giant sugar loaf. A very heavy one, 95 pounds to be exact. That's about the size of a small person made of sugar. Now comes the art of stripes. A chunk of that loaf is dyed red and cut into strips about 4 inches long. These strips are pressed into the big loaf like decorations on a Christmas cake. Voila! You've got the red and white swirl starting to come together. But it's not a cane yet. Then we have the extruder machines. This thing takes the sugar loaf into long, skinny candy strands. It's just like a pasta maker, but you get candy ropes instead of spaghetti. These ropes go through cutters to chop them into individual pieces. Then, as if by magic, or clever engineering, another machine bends the warm candy into that classic cane shape. These machines can handle over 2,000 pounds of candy an hour. That's enough to keep Santa and his elves snacking for years. Now here's where the candy canes get their outfits. As they come out of the machine, they're wrapped in clear plastic. It's like a candy cane runway show. A heat sealer locks the wrapping, keeping them fresh and shiny. From there, they're boxed, shrink-wrapped to protect them from moisture because nobody wants a soggy candy cane, and stacked onto pallets. Then, it's off to the trucks for their grand road trip to stores nationwide. And that's how a boiling pot of sugar turns into the star of your Christmas stocking. Who knew candy canes were such overachievers? Did you know candy canes weren't always striped, pepperminty, or even cane-shaped? Yeah, these holiday icons have quite the backstory, and it's way more twisted than you think. Let's go down history lane. Thousands of years ago, some cavemen stumbled upon a beehive, got stung a couple times, and thought, totally worth it. That honey? It became humanity's first sweet treat. Fast forward to ancient Egypt, China, and Greece, these guys were the original candy chefs, mixing honey with fruits and nuts. Sweet, sticky, and probably terrible for their ancient dental hygiene. Then came the Middle Ages, when Persia figured out how to refine sugar. Europe was all like, we'll take that. Suddenly, hard candies and licorice were everywhere. It was candy chaos. But what about this little guy? You've probably heard the stories. Candy canes were made to symbolize Christianity. The white stands for purity, the red for Christ's blood, and the cane shape, a shepherd's staff. Beautiful, right? I hate to break it to you, but historians say that's not how it happened. It turns out that candy canes were made centuries after Christianity took off. Sorry, legend lovers. What happened? Around 350 years ago, candy makers figured out they could stretch sugar into various shapes. Straight sugar sticks were easy to eat, and by the 1600s, people started using them to decorate their Christmas trees because nothing says festive like edible ornaments. Then, in 1670, a German choir master at the Cologne Cathedral had a genius idea. His choir kids couldn't sit still during long services, so he bent sugar sticks into a shepherd's staff and handed them out. A little sugar, a lot of peace. Brilliant, right? That's how the candy cane got its iconic shape, and probably how some choir kids got their first sugar rush. But those early candy canes were plain white. Boring. The iconic red and white stripes didn't show up until the early 19th century. Who added them? Nobody knows. It's like the candy cane's mystery. Back then, making candy canes by hand was hard work. Each one had to be rolled, shaped, and striped manually. No wonder they were mostly sold locally. People didn't have time to make thousands of these things. Then came the 1950s. And Gregory Keller, a Catholic priest, said, "Enough with the hand cramps." He invented a machine that could crank out candy canes automatically. Suddenly, candy canes were everywhere. And today, we're eating over 1.7 billion of them every year. That's a lot of sugar sticks. So next time you grab one of these holiday treats, think about the cavemen, choir masters, and candy makers who made it possible. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more content.